So any other changes for the minutes on the 18th?
And for me.
It looks good, everything else.
Okay, so we'll make a motion to approve the minutes. from
So
the-
moved.
Second,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes of the August 24th meeting approved. So the 20, excuse me, I have the wrong date.
Of the 18th.
It was the 18th, minutes of August 18 have been approved. And we'll give it a few more minutes, I guess, for Ed to join the line.
Hello, this is Roger. Can you hear me?
All right, he's gonna try dialing in from his phone.
I can hear you, Roger.
Tell him to walk over my house and I can set up a chair beside me.
Give him a minute to see if he dials in.
Hello.
Hey, Roger, how's it going?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. I just got another Zoom came up on the other screen. But I had trouble getting in. So finally it let me in.
Ed, is that you?
I'm here.
All right, great. We
Oh,
have
my
a chairman.
All right, so go ahead.
All right, so Ed, just so you know, who we have on the call here is Deputy Chief Rich Kelleher, Chief Tim Bailey, Noreen, Cheryl, Josette, Scott, Michelle, Deputy Chief Paul Berry, Leah McGill, who's just started with the Capital Budget Committee just last week, first meeting. Congratulations, Roger, Chief Carmichael, Walpole Media TV, and Rick Mattson. So just so you know who's on the call with us.
Okay.
All right, so why don't we get, Patrick, are you all set to get started with broadcasting the meeting?
Yeah, it just gives people more opportunity.
Yeah, I'm all set. I started when they did the minutes, because that's part of the meeting.
I had mine on mute, sorry about that, okay. All right, so.
So yes,
Ed, why don't
we're going.
We'll get started, and what I'll do is before we turn it over to the Public Safety Departments, I just want to give an update to the Capital Budget Committee since our meeting last week. So I'm just gonna share my screen here. So I sent over a revised capital budget packet yesterday. I'm sorry about the links. I haven't been able to figure out how to redo the links to bring it down to the individual departments. But I do want to just point out, so the capital summary, and we'll get into the summary in just a moment, has been revised. Because the capital summary has been revised, the 5-year capital improvement plan has been revised. The engineering department requests have been revised. So as of last week, you had asked for additional information about the downtown study. So you'll see the additional information from McMahon Associates and some of the other consultants indicating really the wide range of quotations that we got from those firms for the scope that we're looking for. Revision from the Parks Division. This was for the synthetic turf field. You may recall at the meeting last week, the initial request was for $50,000 for the Turco field, and then while we were balancing the capital budget, we had changed the nature of the request from Turco field to just generic synthetic turf field and increased it to $75,000 because of the new fields coming online. I'll get into vehicle maintenance in just a moment. Also, you'll notice that the school department request has been submitted, so there's just a placeholder in the packet last time. And then the only other thing I want to point out is Conservation Commission. So in the submission last week, Landis had her requests spread over 3 years. So if you notice in the Conservation Commission packet, we've just consolidated those into the 1 year requests that we're recommending for funding for this year. Vehicle maintenance, I did just want to point this out, and if Tom Collins is watching at home, I think he was part of the reason why we went back and took a look at this. So Ed, if you may remember, you would ask more information about the trade-in value, which led for Tom Percicanti to contact the salesperson, and come to find out the original $145,000 request that was submitted for the sweeper was actually closer to $245,000. So I'm glad we went back and did that exercise so we could go through the capital budget and try to squeeze that in. And I'll go over kind of where the changes are now. But the new request is for $225,000, and Tommy's been guaranteed a $20,000 trade-in value. So you'll see that what's requested on the capital budget summary is for $225,000, which is the $245,000 minus the $20,000 trade-in, which is the $225,000. So, and I do want to just point out to Tommy's defense, when he purchased the sweeper back in 2013, the request was for, at the time, was $145,000. So when we thought he got the quote for $145,000 this year, it matched up what he got in 2013. So, but I do want to just kind of point out where some of the where the difference is from what we saw last week. Turner Pond, we had reduced Turner Pond. The initial request there was $15,790, so we took that off and just made that an even $15,000. For engineering department, the DPW has withdrawn the drainage study that was initially recommended for $145,000 and was recommended for $41,000. So of that $80,000 delta or so, that we're taking a lot of that from the drainage study that was originally recommended. Last week we looked at the traffic signal study and the downtown area traffic study. Those were each recommended at $92,000 and $92,000. So we dropped those down to $90,000. I do want to point out another funding source here. So while we were scrambling last week to try to figure out how we could fund the new sweeper, I talked to Kerry at the Council on Aging, and last fall the Capital Budget Committee recommended the replacement of the van with the assistance of Josette in the Council on Aging Board. So that came in under budget, and there was $7,000 left in that account. So we've actually reallocated that towards the Highway Department to help with the increased amount. And then I'm just taking a look at my notes. Additional changes was the chipper. The chipper for the Parks Department, we were recommending last week at $80,000. We've reduced that to $70,000. And Rick Mattson, I don't know if he's got any additional comments, recommended that we go with the bid and see if we can get a more competitive price. So he didn't think that was a problem. And then, like I said, the sweeper here, we've increased the sweeper here to $225,000. Emergency truck, management truck was $6,000 last week. Now it's $5,000. And then I think the last items that were different from last week was the MS4 stormwater management permit. So that was recommended last week at $40,000. We've dropped that down to $35,000. And hot fiber crack sealing was $30,000. We've dropped that down to $20,000. So before I turn over the questions, Rick, am I missing anything? Anything you want to add in there?
No, you covered all the changes, Patrick, and we're comfortable with all the changes that have been made. We feel that we can keep our programs going and replace our equipment with the funds that we're seeking.
Okay, great. Any questions about these changes from the committee?
Patrick, on the sweeper there, the 225, is that the cost after the trade-in value?
Yeah, because we got the guarantee from the salesperson, Jim felt comfortable building that into the cost of the sweeper for the appropriation that we'd be seeking.
Okay, so even with the money that we've put into that old sweeper, it's not worth keeping as a backup for that?
No, that was something we took a look at. And Rick, I don't know if you want to comment on that too. Looking back at my notes from with Tommy, I think we invested about $40,000 already into that sweeper. And then,
Yeah, we're still currently assessing that. At this point in time, it does not look as though it's practical for us to keep it. One of the other issues we'd have with keeping it is where do we store it? As you guys are all aware, we don't have a lot of vacant space to park vehicles, and this is something that would need to be kept inside. So that's one of the considerations, that in the general overall condition of the existing sweeper. It looks like at this point in time, we are not going to keep it.
And correct me if I'm wrong, was it current, or to repair what we currently had on that sweeper was $6,000?
I know in early July, he spent, I believe it was roughly $7,800 in the whole roller mechanism, which was one of the main components. But it's starting to develop hydraulic leaks, electrical problems, and things that are probably going to end up being very expensive to keep it on the road.
sorry, Michelle, just so I understand, what was the question? I couldn't hear you too well when you asked the question.
Oh, I was reading through the request, and it was saying currently in order to fix what was broken with the sweeper, it would cost us about $6,000. So that number was in there, 6,000.
Oh.
You may have confused that, if you don't mind, Patrick, you may have confused that with the emergency management truck paint. That was going to be $6,000.
Oh, maybe, could be.
Yeah, I think that's the $6,000 that I recall also from the vehicle maintenance department. $6,000
To paint.
repainting of the emergency management truck.
Okay, nope, you're right, absolutely. Thank you very much.
No problem. All right, any other questions about the changes and the recommendations before turning it over to public safety?
I have a question. The money that was left over from the COA on the van, because I'm not down there, has the new van been outfitted with everything it needs for the signage and anything else?
Yes, it has. I talked
Okay.
to Carrie about that last week, and she worked with Tom Percicanti to make sure that they got what it needed. So yes, it has.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right. So with that, what do we can turn it over to the fire department's up first. And if you're following along, I wrote written notes to myself. So the fire department, if you're looking at the PDF, you can pull it up starting on page 220, and I'll get my shared screen, so I'll pull it up here. But again, on the call is Chief Timothy Bailey and Deputy Chief Paul Berry, and we can turn it over to those guys.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you to the committee. Number one is the replacement of 2,500 feet of 3-inch fire hose. That is the entire complement of our 3-inch fire hose. What has happened in the past when we bought new vehicles is that we always used to put the old hose onto the new trucks. And in the last year, I've assigned one of our members to strictly to hose maintenance of all of our fire apparatus hose, because we had a problem with our 4-inch hose a couple of years ago that your committee graciously gave us the funding to replace our 4-inch hose because of the same issue. When he went back and was testing all of our 3-inch hose, we found out that most of it is dated 1988 and earlier. And by NFPA standards, we're not allowed to have hose. We should not have hose that is pre-88, which is one length of our current complement meets that requirement. The rest of it does not. So that is the fund. What I'm looking for is funding to replace that for a total of $15,500, and that'll replace all of our 3-inch firefighting hose and give us a small complement of spare hose to keep on hand. Do you want me to go through each one of these, or one at a time?
Why don't you keep going, Chief?
Okay. So next on the is number 2 is the replacement of 98 portable radio batteries and 1 multi-unit charger. The replacement will be for all of our batteries are out of warranty, and we're having a difficult time having them hold charges. And the multi-unit chargers needed for the portable radios were our new APX 4000 radios, which are the command staff, myself, the deputy, and we have another one for our captains. And that's what that charger will be used for. That total is for $11,108. I believe Jim recommended $11,000 for that. That'll give us the ability to have one active radio battery for each member, as well as a spare that they'll carry with them. And lastly, on our list is number 3, which is the replacement of 4 SCBA air packs and tower ladder training. The first one being the SCBA air packs. They have a 20-year lifespan, and they too are out of their lifespan. We've always used our equipment and kept it in service as long as possible. These 4 SCBA air packs will replace 4 that are going out of date. And the tower ladder training is additional supplemental training by subject matter experts that'll come here that actually use the truck, and they're firefighters from city departments. And they'll come here and provide the training for us at an advanced level. We've had the basic level training. All of our personnel are very familiar with the truck, but this will give us advanced training from as I said, subject matter experts that have used this type of vehicle and can show us different tricks of the trade and different methods and ways of operating that truck, setting it up to maximize its efficiency. And the total for that was $36,000. The training for the tower ladder training is $7,000, and the batteries is $29,000. And those are the 3 items.
All right, any questions for the fire department?
Yes, Chief Bailey, so these packs, the SCBA packs or the bottles, they are something that you're constantly replacing? Because I think it was last year we funded $60,000 or so on that. So I'm assuming that you have so many in your arsenal, and then as they get outdated, you have to replace them, and that's what the new numbers are?
That is correct. So last year's request was for our bottles. Our bottles and our packs are 2 different things. So the packs are actually the framework and the regulator, and the bottles are a separate piece to that. Last year was for the bottles. The bottles have a 15-year lifespan, and then they go out of date. So after 15 years, they have to be replaced. The packs are on a 20-year life cycle, and those are what I'm asking for today for the 4 that are currently going out of date.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions about the requests?
The 2,500 feet, the 3-inch hose there, does that complement all of your vehicles, all of your fire trucks, or is it just for one fire truck?
No, it'll give us the 500 feet that we need for each of the 4 engines, the front line engines, and it'll give us 500 feet of spare hose.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think I saw Ed. Did you sign on through Zoom? Were you able to get on?
I think I'm in there, but my voice isn't there. I can see your screen now.
Okay, all right, great.
So, but I'm still on the phone for audio.
Okay, whatever works, right?
One at a time, right?
Yeah, one at a time. That's it. All right. So if there's no other questions for the fire department, we can turn things over to the police department if that's all right with you, Ed.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
So on the call from the police department is Chief John Carmichael and Deputy Chief Rich Kelleher. If you're following along in your PDFs, the police department requests start on page 201. So turn it over to you guys.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you also to the committee for having us tonight. The first request that we have is for a marked police cruiser. This will be to replace an existing cruiser that we're going to be trading in. it's got high miles on it right now, and it's out of factory warranty. So we're looking to replace that as part of regular routine replacement of the fleet. This is to avoid, large maintenance costs, as these are no longer under factory warranty. So we'd like to replace these cruisers to make sure they're safe and operable for the officers, and they'll have a factory warranty to go with us, so we won't be, having large repair costs as we go along, as they do run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week most often. So included in the cost, which is $58,400, would also include all the emergency equipment that would go inside the cage, all the stuff that goes inside of it, the light packages, the push bar, all the things that we would require, as well as a transfer of the radio program, a radio unit, which we will be transferring from the old cruiser. That'd be just the maintenance cost, the labor cost to transfer that over, and as well as a new mobile data terminal, which is basically the computer we use to run license plates and operate our software program through. And that'll be included in that as well. And new to this year's outfitting will be a printer that goes with the MDT, as we are now switching over to e-citations. That's kind of the trend. Everybody's going to these now. It's a lot safer. It's quicker for officers to write citations, which gives less time on the side of the road, which is safer for the officers and for people that are being stopped. So again, this is the first question, which we're trying to replace this cruiser. So the second request is for our AEDs, which are our automatic external defibrillators. We're on a regular cycle of replacing these every year, as opposed to a one-time lump, large cost to replace all of them. Several years back, we had requested a large sum of money, and it was recommended we do this every year so that we avoid a large cost. And to replace 5 units this coming year would be roughly $8,000. And again, replacement of these would be important, as these machines really need to work for obvious reasons when we need them to. We can't have them failing on us, or there won't be, there could be catastrophic, obviously, results if that is the case. So right now we have 1 in every cruiser, and we have 4 inside of our building. So for safety purposes for the public. So we're looking to replace 5 of these this year to stay on track with the regular replacement, so we don't have any issues going forward. And finally, my third request would be for an unmarked police cruiser. This would also be to replace an existing car, so there'll be a trade-in that will go with this. And again, the vehicle we're looking to replace is well over 7 years old. And it's got over 60,000 miles on it currently, so we're looking to replace that vehicle now with a vehicle that could be used for different aspects of our investigation. So it wouldn't necessarily look like a police cruiser. We would use it for something that would be a little more covert. But the unmarked vehicles are important to us, because we have a lot of our administrative staff also work during the day. So we're looking to keep the cruisers that we have up and running, because again, we have several officers that don't actually have their vehicles to use during the day. So we're trying to keep the ones that we have running, and work towards expanding in the future. But the cost of this would be, we purchased one last year, it was roughly $30,000 for around there. So that's what we're requesting for a new unmarked cruiser this year.
Great. That's all I have. So, sorry, just looking at my notes here. So the town administrator concurs with the deputy chief's recommendations and is recommending funding for these through free cash. Any questions for the police department?
Hey, Chief. I see, at least on the grid, you have 10 marked cruisers and 10 unmarked cruisers. Do you basically, is the replacement rate basically, one of those, so it's 2 a year, kind of every year? Is that about what we're looking at? Like that's one marked and one unmarked every year?
Yeah, yes. We've replaced the unmarked cruisers at 2 every year. The unmarked, we have been working to replace more regularly. So that we're looking to try to do this year as well.
So, I have a question there. I thought the marked cruisers came under your yearly budget. Is this one above and beyond any of the other ones that are being replaced?
No, it's not.
So usually the unmarked cruisers always come under capital, and typically the
marked cruisers will come under our operating budget. However, this year, during the budget process, we had some cuts that had to be made, and at Jim's suggestion, we moved one of the 2 cruisers we were requesting this year out of our operating budget for the capital.
Okay, so you'll be replacing 2 this year, but 1 out of your budget and then 1 from capital.
Correct.
Correct, right?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
And so these numbers that we have, do those include the trade-in amounts that you'd be allotted for the vehicles that you're trading in?
No, this is the cost of the production to get the new vehicle without the trade-in value. Again, we weren't sure how much that was going to be just yet, so we included just the straight cost right now, and we would see what the trade-in value would be when we contacted the dealership.
Okay, so if we need that.
So, Patrick, a question to you. If they don't use all of the funds, that money would be returned to the free cash?
They wouldn't get returned to free cash. They would stay in those capital accounts. And again, because, so for instance, if you look at the, I'm going to scroll up, I'm going to lose my spot, I know it. If you look at the descriptions for any of these capital articles, for instance, so like a marked police cruiser, that if there's any leftover balance from that expenditure, if projects come in under budget, it can only be used for the purpose for which it was appropriated. So it could only be used for a marked police cruiser. So in some of these cases, if you notice, like these completed capital projects, we've got these balances sitting there. We can't just go ahead and use that money for other projects. It needs to be reappropriated. So if these cruisers came in under budget, or if there was leftover money after the expenditure, you know, depending on the nature of the balance, we could either move that to, you know, if we need to get anything else for that police cruiser or other police cruisers, we could use it for that, but nothing more, unless we were to take that balance and reappropriate it at, through an act of town meeting.
So Patrick, if one of the cruisers gets turned in and you know, it has a value of, you know, $10,000 or whatever, where does that money go?
I'm sorry, say it again.
So if a cruiser is, you know, they trade it in, you know, one of the old ones gets traded in and there's value there, where does that money go?
So if it's part of a transaction, so for instance, it's a transaction, and it's just you apply that to the cost of the vehicle, so then we're just paying the net. And the money doesn't go anywhere. We're just reducing the amount of the purchase. Am I understanding the question correctly? Sorry, Scott, you're on mute.
Sorry, yeah, but that would leave money. So say it's, you know, it's $58,000 as requested for the new cruiser, and we get $10,000 on a trade-in, so it costs $48,000. Where does that net $10,000 go?
That stays in the capital account that'll be generated for the marked police cruiser.
Okay, so it doesn't go back into like free cash and can be spent on anything. It stays in that bucket. Okay.
It can't be spent on anything. It can only be spent on the description that's given there. And like I mentioned, if you look at some of these other accounts here, like pickup truck, this is probably a very similar situation. Back in 2017, you know, we've got a leftover balance. It just sits in that account until we go and reappropriate it for other purposes.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yep. Yeah, and I just want to expand on that just a little bit more. You know, under normal circumstances, the sweeper aside, we try not to budget with the trade-in in mind. That was a situation where we're trying to really squeeze pennies to try to get, you know, it was a priority of the Department of Public Works. You know, with limited resources, we were really trying to make that work. We did get the guarantee from the salesperson. In most circumstances, we don't like to do that because, you know, in most cases there aren't a lot of guarantees, and the accounting department will allow us to execute a contract unless we've got those funding sources in place. And so if we under budget, we can't make that expenditure. We're really restricted as far as our ability to, you know, enter into an agreement with the salesperson. So you know, we try to go with this approach. So we're not in that position after town meeting where we're shy money for the purpose, you know, for the purchases that I think we're, you know, the capital budget committee has generally supported in the past. That's why we try not to build that in, because we really can't guarantee anything. We don't want to be in a position where we can't expend the money.
Patrick, maybe you can answer this. Both the marked cruiser to be replaced and the soft unmarked cruiser to be replaced, what type of cruisers are they being replaced with?
I'll turn that over to the deputy. I'm sure he probably won't want to reveal the unmarked cruiser, but.
No, that's fine.
So the marked cruiser would be a Ford Interceptor 2021, so it would be consistent with what we have now, just a newer model. And then the unmarked soft car, again, it would be whatever we could.
Whatever you get.
Yeah, whatever we get within that, yeah, again, for reasons we.
Yeah, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Deputy, I know in the past there's questions that have come up about why we can't, you know, especially for our investigations, why we can't just get kind of a beater, and that you know, in the past we've really kind of gone with the safety of the individuals responsible, you know, for driving. So you want to just talk about kind of why we can't just go with a beater vehicle for some of these unmarked cruisers?
Yeah, again, it would be, you know, expensive for maintenance with these cars that are older. We've had older cars in the past, and which we've obtained through, you know, for asset forfeiture and things of that nature, which is becoming increasingly difficult to do for a lot of reasons. So we've moved towards getting newer cars that are, you know, covert but still more reliable, and it would end up costing less to repair on a regular basis, because some of those older cars, you're dumping money into them, and next thing you know, you don't know whether it's worth the fix anymore. So let's try to avoid doing that going forward.
Okay, any other questions for the police department? Okay, if not, thank you, Chief. Thank you, Deputy, and I can turn it over to Emergency Management Director Roger Turner. And if you're following along on your PDFs, I get the page number here, page 232. Roger, I think you're on mute. There you go.
That makes it. Okay. Well, good evening, and thank you very much for inviting me to this capital budget. You may note that there's only one item here, and we took it because we haven't had much success over the past years for any capital budget. The item that we have here is to get the Blackburn Hall ready to accept the mobile or the trailer generator that the town has. And that means getting the transfer switch installed and a plug on the outside of the building. And I'm glad to see that the $10,000 that was originally requested is down to, I think, 6 or 5, if I read it correctly, which is more realistic. And that was on my punch list to talk about. I think we had too much money allocated for what we wanted to do. We're not talking about a new generator. We would like it. I have I should say this, I have a sort of a historical aspect of the outside of the building, and I think that the location on Stone Street is not a very good architecturally, let's say, appropriate to have a generator sitting there in the side of the building. I noticed the gas line is there, and I hope they put some type of other things around it so that it doesn't look so bad. But anyway, that's my own thing. Any questions?
So at this time, this is not one of the items that the town administrator is recommending for funding this year. I do want to mention that Don Anderson, the building maintenance superintendent, is going to be on the meeting next week, and you'll notice under his submissions, he's got a request for some investments at Blackburn Hall. So after consulting with him, he was not recommending this at this time. So sorry, Roger, but that didn't make the town administrator's recommendations this year. Any questions for Roger? Is he still on? Did I lose him? Oh, there he is.
Well, I'm all set.
All set, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks, Roger.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
All right, so that concludes the meeting for tonight. The only thing I just want to mention is that since our meeting last week, the Finance Committee schedule has been set. So it looks like the Capital Budget Committee is going to be on the Finance Committee schedule for Thursday, September 3rd. It's a week from this upcoming Thursday at 7 p.m. I think it's the last item on the agenda. So as soon as I get more definitive times, I'll send those around so people aren't sitting on the Finance Committee meeting. Or you may, it's your call, but I'll try to get a more definitive schedule so you're not on for other items. So that's it for tonight. Any other questions that I can be of assistance with?
No, I think I'm all set.
Okay.
I got to figure out my computer here, but otherwise I'm all set.
Can't help you with that, Ed.
So Patrick, what's the plan? So next Tuesday we have the school department and then we vote?
Yeah, school department and building maintenance. And what I'll probably do is invite all the department heads on, just in case there's any last minute questions before the votes. If I just pull up the capital budget summary again. So really, the question in front of you is whether or not you agree with the priority list, and if there are other items that weren't funded that you think should be funded, as long as we stay within that 1.2 million free cash recommendation. So I think for the most part there are a lot of items here that have been funded that were requested, and we worked with those departments, and they've come on the last week, this week, and next week. So yeah, next week we'll finish up the request from the school department. We'll make sure you guys are comfortable with the expenses and the requests, and turn it over for a vote.
Okay, I'll be at the polls all day next week, so I won't be there. Good luck, and I'll see you at the FinCom meeting. Vote, everybody.
Early enough.
Okay. Thank
Early
you.
enough, Carol.
Thanks, and as always, if anybody has any questions about the capital budget process or any of the requests, or please feel free, reach out to me, reach out to the departments directly. We're here to give you the information that you need. So thanks, everybody.
Patrick, do you want to send me this in a Word form or doc form?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah,
So I can, when we take the votes, I can put it in.
Yep, I'll do that. I'll do that right now.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Cheryl.
Should we do a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Okay. Thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Have a nice
Night.
week.
Bye.
Bye.